Many of them could only operate at 25% of their normal production capacity, and their big markets had closed, needless to say, as you had the schools and hotels. And we see that these small enterprises, those which had existing access to export market, had not been able to shop for their orders, and the production was affected. And for those with perishable produce, the loss was even higher and more significant. We note in the study in 2021, just last month, that 100% of the women entrepreneurs reported increase in operational costs. Logistically, it became costly, needless to say, adding also the measures, the masks, the gloves, all those were unpredicted costs to their ventures. 50% of the women entrepreneurs reported reduction in employees, and 40 to 50% of these employees that were laid off were women. 25% of the women entrepreneurs reported reduction in salary. So we should thank God for many of us that are privileged to still be salaried, and I know some took cuts, but there are those who completely lost their livelihood. COVID-19, apart from SMEs, has had impact on women's rights and gender equality. We note from one of the surveys in 2021 that 33% reported increase of 2 to 4 hours of increase in unpaid care work, but we had 37% increase in GBV. In this, we also validate with another study of June 2020 that shows while some curfews and limiting interactions were helpful to many of us, I'm sure, those in the rural areas especially, it showed it was a different ballgame altogether, with inevitable violence waiting to be unleashed on them by their intimate partner and family members. Studies have also shown that over 33% of the rapes of gender-based violence victims took place in the victim's home. 81% of the perpetrators are known by the victims. They are quite close. So lockdown means violence. That's on rights and gender equality. What impact do we see happening on farmers' resilience and vulnerability to external shocks? From the select findings of the studies we've had between 2020 to date, we see that a very resilient community. In trying to cope with COVID-19 related hardships, people had to skip meals, sell their property, withdraw their savings for those that had them, selling their agriculture produce, albeit at very low prices, even selling livestock. And for a Rwandan to sell livestock, we all know what that means. But a great advantage of being in VSLAs and cooperatives, many were able to borrow from the cooperatives. 98% of farmers' livelihoods, particularly of women farmers, reported that their livelihoods were negatively affected by COVID-19, and 96% reported difficulty in accessing food. So as we think about the way forward, food security in a sustainable way, what impact has COVID-19 had on agriculture value chain actors? We see that 25% reporting movement of reduced market demand resulted in women farmers experiencing perishability of their farm produce. And with this, we also see that farmers' major concerns were mainly around reduction of assets and market volatility and increase in production costs, as well as disruption in the supply chain. I'll give one case example of Muhanga Food Processing Industries, one of the SMEs that we work with in the value chain and in soya production in the southern province. And we see that while they had projected 150% increase of sales between 2019 and 2020, with the movement restrictions and social distancing and lockdowns, MFPI could only operate at 25% of its normal production capacity. So their big market, which had been schools and had closed, affected and led to loss of their client, which made them reduce as well their staffing to 10 instead of the 35 that they had. So part of Oxfam response has been to support these SMEs in recoveries so they can re-employ people they had laid down, so they can have cold chains and be able to be resilient to these shocks caused by COVID-19. One of the assessments on aggregators also that we carried out shows the investment in fixed assets is limited for aggregators operating within the horticulture value chain, and less than 5% of them have their own or leased cold chains, facilities or greenhouses. The decreased demand of produce was up to 90%, and lack of loss of capital up to 83%, and damaged stores up to 76%. So what opportunities are we seeing, and what could be the quick wins in order to build back better? Think sustainability, think long term, beyond the relief kind of assistance that our economic recovery plans have. Yes, we can distribute food quickly, but COVID is still here with us, and in the long term, what does that mean? Secondly, use agenda lens to make the national recovery plans gender sensitive as we think forward, because we're talking about 50% or plus of the population that have to be included in the recovery plans. Thirdly, access to finance. There is need to include the marginalized and indeed previously excluded people, and access to finance for the smallholder farmers does matter and does count, even those in the horticulture value chain, because horticulture value chain is a key contributor to this economy, and we're talking both at micro, meso, and macro level, and we're saying that value chain development is very, very important as we think about recovery, and think sustainability in terms of agroecology, and making sure we intensify knowledge transfer to build resilience to external shocks, and organic farming and agroecology are pertinent to this. I thank you as I open to the video to hear from the women themselves, part of whom I have represented by sharing the impact of COVID-19 on their lives and livelihoods. Thank you very much.
Volume for video. IT colleagues, video try to make also, we want to hear the volume. You can restart it from the start.
muri gahunda harimo gufasha
Make sure.
Microphone
is switched off. Hello? Okay, now I think it can work. Start from 0, okay.
muri gahunda y'umuryango gahunda y'u Rwanda harimo gufasha abagore abagabo n'urubyiruko bugarijwe n'ubukene kubwikuramo muri byinshi Oxfam yagiye ikora harimo gufasha muri gahunda y'umuryango Oxfam gahunda y'u Rwanda harimo
byinshi twagiye tuhabwa na dutera imbere nawo gisifu
muri gahunda y'umuryango Oxfam gahunda y'u Rwanda harimo gufasha abagore abagabo n'urubyiruko bugarijwe n'ubukene muri gahunda y'umuryango Oxfam gahunda y'u Rwanda harimo gufasha abagore abagabo n'urubyiruko bugarijwe n'ubukene kubwikuramo muri byinshi Oxfam yagiye ikora harimo gufasha ibyo byiciro guhanga imishinga mito n'iciriritse n'ibindi bikorwa bibyara inyungu
ubumenyi bwinshi twagiye tuhabwa na dutera imbere nawo gisifu bari baduhuguye muri shore n'unguke batwigishije gutyaza ubwenge bwo kubikora nubwo covid dusize iheruheru
badutoje umuco mwiza wo kwizigamira babicisha mu masomo baduhaga batahwemaga kuduha
kugira ngo hashobore gukorwa ubuvugizi ndetse habe n'ingamba zo guhangana n'ibyorezo haba ubu no mu bihe bizaza Oxfam mu Rwanda yakoze inyigo igamije kureba ingaruka covid yagize mu kudindiza imishinga y'abagore bo mu cyaro n'abagabo bafatanyije birumvikana
gukorera ibyo nanasi nabwo twagizemo igihombo kuko mu gihe twari muri guma mu rugo ntabwo twashoboraga kuva mu rugo ngo tujye gukora izo nanasi
twavuze duti wenda twafata nk'abantu bahegereye bakaba bakora muri uwo murimo muri raporo usanga tumaze gutakaza hafi miliyoni hafi kugera enye zasohotse kugira ngo umurima ubashe kuza gusa neza
duhomba umusaruro wacu naho twawujyanaga nabo ndumva nta kintu babashije kongera gukora
igihombo twagize kigera kuri hafi miliyoni enye miliyoni mirongo icyenda na zirindwi y'imikorere iri mu karere itegereje gutarwa byabaye bitunguranye twari kugaruka dukubitamo birangirika ni inanasi zangirikiye muri sitoke ziboreramo
aho guma mu rugo yarangiriye na n'ubu turasarura ariko ntabwo tugurisha nk'uko twagurishaga mbere kuko n'abaguzi abari kuvuga ati taransipoti yariyongeye
ibikoresho byavaga hanze bikoreshejwe mu kugira isuku ntibibonetse biboneka nk'izihenze igiciro gifatwa nka gatatu
muri kondisiyo yateguwe kuko kugurisha abantu bahise bibanda cyane mu kugura ibyo kurya amaji n'ibindi bakenera tugabanya n'abakozi twese tugabanya 50%. abakoraga mu ruganda b'abanyabiraka barahagaze bo burundu
isoko ry'imbuto n'ibikomoka ku mbuto byatumaga biteza imbere mu ngo zabo
ibyo baryaga byaragabanutse abana basubiye ku ishuri mu gusubira ku ishuri tubura mu mibare yo kubatangira bitewe n'uko habayeho icyo kibazo cy'umusaruro utarabashije kugurishwa
ya mirimo myinshi idahemberwa havugwa ko yagenewe abagore bikitirirwa umuco yarushijeho kwiyongera
cyane kuko nko mu rugo abakoraga byose urabona kwita ku bana biyongera niba uri gushaka amafaranga kwita ku bana ugerageza kubigisha ngo badasigara inyuma hanyuma ikiyongereye usanga twaragiye kugwiza abakozi bo mu rugo nabo kubera twagiye kubyikorera
presenters. Thank you very much, Didier, for a nice presentation showing the general impact of COVID on our economy and economic response. Thank you, Austin, for also analysis of COVID and the impacts. And for specifically focusing on impacts on women-owned enterprises and farmers, and also for the very nice summarized video. Now, this is a time for, I know maybe you might be tired, but let us have a few minutes to comment on the three presentations, ask questions, make comments before we break for lunch. So you raise the hand. When you give your floor, you identify yourself and tell us who you want to address the question. Thank you very much. Yes, sir, you can go ahead. You use the microphones in front of you.
Thank you very much, all the presenters, on how Rwanda can recover from the COVID-19 shocks. You have really provided evidences, but there are some key policy areas of concern which are not being focused on. Now, in order to recover well, I think policy should focus on helping the informal sector. The presenter was saying some are using national capital. Is it national capital? But you see, these people in informal sector, they need to be helped to be integrated in formal sector. I think that's where the problem is now. If we are really to recover from the shocks, these people, for example, we have the recovery fund, but they are not, when you ask them, they are not aware of the recovery fund. They are in informal sector. You can see the presentation from Oxfam, what they are saying. They are facing challenges, and they are left there. This recovery fund is not targeting them, it's targeting on this formalized businesses. So these people are left out. As the presenters have brought it out clearly, I think policymakers, we have the people from Ministry of the Minicofin, Ministry of Trade. I think they should focus on how to help these people of informal sector be transformed into formal sector. Let policy focus on those issues. Then we shall have the real recovery. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I also received also another from social media, a question. Maybe Didier will come in, but also senior economist at Minicofin, Dr. Thierry, can intervene. The Economic Recovery Fund, as he said, is concerning on registered businesses. Another comment online was saying, is it gender sensitive? Maybe like to say, are there some, some privileges given maybe to female businesses? You know, you understand what it means. You will intervene on it, Dr. Thierry. Another question? Yes, Paul? Paul?
Thank you very much. I'm Paul Gatenderezi. Thank you for the presentation, for the first, the first presentation was showing us the impact, the shock of GDP. And the second was just to see how now the Rwanda is recovering the policy, Vision 2030. And the last one was just tap on the women issue, gender sensitive. I'm wondering, we realized that GDP have a negative impact. And the women, the agriculture sector, smallholder agriculture, like we see that video, show us they have really the problem. And as the recover funds, those the government doesn't intervene in agriculture for the smallholder farmers, and those is one who contribute more. And we are aware agriculture is a backbone of our economy. Agriculture is the smallholder is one who contribute more on the GDP in terms of production of agriculture product. So I would like to know if there is a policy who want to help those smallholders, especially women, who contribute more to that GDP. And we know the sector to contribute to agriculture, industry, and services. And I heard on the information maybe there's only the big investors where the government intervene to help them in terms of the people who lost, the people who have a big, not the small, the SMEs, no. They take the people who are the big man, who has a big investment, and the one who the government is now helping to recover them. What about now those small people? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do we have someone with a question or presentation made by Mr. Austin? You want to make a comment or a question to Austin? His presentation was well understood. Now, can we respond this? Because I think I had questions to SMEs, but also having a link to Oxfam presentation. If no other question, maybe we take these people, they respond, others will intervene. But I'm sure also Austin can intervene on how can the SMEs contribute to GDP, to contribute. All right, can we start with Didier, maybe to intervene on some of the questions? You want Thierry to start? It's fine, Thierry.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm Thierry Kalisa from Minecofin. I think there were some questions related to the informal sector, especially the ERF, the Economic Recovery Fund.
Sorry, people on Zoom are claiming they can't hear you.
Oh.
Maybe get closer, pull it just closer to you.
Yeah. Is it better?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think it's better.
No, I just wanted to give a sense of what's done within the Economic Recovery Fund for micro businesses especially. The Economic Recovery Fund for SMEs is the funds allocated for SMEs within the Economic Recovery Fund are around 5 billion so far. There was 3.5 billion allocated for working capital. And working capital to different small and micro businesses. This is done through BDF, but the applications are done at the level of the SACCOs. You're right, there is some of the research of today is saying that basically people don't know much about it, but in reality you can, if you're an informal or small business, you can apply through the nearest SACCO to the Economic Recovery Fund. So far, out of the 3.5 billion, around 2.4 billion from 177 Umrenge SACCOs, which is equivalent to more than 60% of the amount has been allocated, already disbursed to some micro businesses. Money was disbursed to 1,583 small businesses so far. So there are things that are done for the micro businesses. Maybe more awareness is needed, and there are still funds in the in BDF to support the micro businesses, and they should apply through their Umrenge SACCOs. Apart from the 3.5 billion, which is direct working capital, there is a credit guarantee facility of around 1.5 billion that is actually to provide credit guarantees to small and micro businesses that have not sufficient collaterals. This is already in place. BDF has the funds, and the SACCOs are where to apply. So if today is an opportunity to again say, actually the funds are there, and it should increase. In the coming months, the window will increase. So government will put more money in the ERF for the micro businesses. I think micro businesses should take the opportunity to to apply and get access to cheaper loans. Thanks.
Maybe Dr. Thierry, another comment was on gender sensitive.
Yeah.
Is there in the plan or fund some mention of gender sensitive? How women are facilitated specifically?
No, on gender, it's very simple. A lot of micro businesses we know are held by women, and that's true. And we talk not only even agriculture. We've been discussing here some small businesses, and women have been on this video we just show. So there's nothing really that is preventing micro businesses held by women to apply, and they're encouraged to do so within this window. Thanks.
Thank you. Who wants to, from the panelists, whoever wants to respond to a question raised or to make another comment? Thank you, Dr. Thierry, for those responses, but you can. Okay, Alice wants to come in.
I really appreciate the progress thus far. When we say 60% disbursed, that's a great milestone. But I'm sure for the 40% and disbursed, there must be some impediments, one of which you rightly put, awareness. So is there a way that we can create the demand to make sure that we are effective in response, because there is a difference between availability and access. And it's also possible, besides awareness, that one of the limiting factors to access to these funds could also be capacity. Maybe they don't have bankable proposals. Maybe the requirements are a bit above them. And how can we also invest, apart from increasing awareness, to the capacities to meet the supply that is even going to increase? Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Austin.
Thank you. Thanks very much, and thank you for the very pertinent questions that were raised across. But I think the general understanding is that we need to move the economy towards a much more resilient and formalized economy. We have to transition people from informality into some semblance of formality. That means building the middle class. That means putting resources in the hands of those small and medium scale, especially the micro enterprises, putting resources into at their disposal so they can actually move up and get more involved in the market in the markets. And that of course will create resilience of these small operators to shocks. So that's I think for my colleagues in the policy making space, that is an area which one might need to look at, especially with regards to this issue of the Economic Recovery Fund. How do we use that, or leverage? How would you use the Economic Recovery Fund to leverage more resources to reach even the most micro enterprises and make them much more resilient to shocks? So that's a challenge again. Thank you.
Thank you for raising that. From the DG Minicom, Jonas.
Yeah, thank you so much. I wanted just to react on the presentation done by, I don't know, the first presenter, I think, who presented virtually from DRC, Isidore, I think.
Before you continue, Claude, is Isidore maybe online? I don't know if you ask a question, maybe you need the response.
It's not a question, just comments.
Thank you.
I think there are a number of initiatives that we are undertaking in collaboration with a number of stakeholders, I think, including UNDP, as far as cross-border trade or promoting informal cross-border trade. And we should be also looking for ways to support recovery, not only looking at financial needs. We do believe that as we look for recovery, we need to also look at many other things apart from the financials only. Yes, financial support is very important, but also looking at the skills, looking at the advisory services that are needed as we resume activities, and as you all have heard, there is really need to focus on how the coordination mechanism done, what are the support provided with the new post-COVID era through formalization, as they have said. How can they consolidate their produce, especially those agricultural produce, since around 70 or 80% of exported product to neighboring countries through the informal cross-border trade, mainly agriculture based. We do believe that the support around that through cooperative organizations, through education, in terms of skills, and also through even I would say trade regime that supports these small cross-border traders to make it happen. We know we have the simplified trade regime, which also needs to be implemented significantly, and the both sides. And recently, we have initiated different talks between the Rubavu, Rusizi, as well as the other side of DRC, both Bukavu and Goma, to really support, although we have other shocks like the earthquake, but we think that the momentum that we have already built, even during this pandemic, we really support in the recovery process, as also the economic ties between the two countries are really getting better, and we think the same could be replicated to other borders as well. So I wanted to highlight that as we look for strategies to support the recovery, it's not only the financial support. There are other ways also to support at the same time, which all together consolidate our effort, and we make sure that we can make it going forward. So we do agree on a number of findings, and also we're working together to support, and we call upon many other stakeholders, not only the government, the civil society. We know there have a number of projects around supporting informal cross-border traders or informal traders, and this is really something that we push forward as a government. We have a specific strategy for cross-border trade, and we are under review of that, and this will include also specific intervention to cope with the recovery mechanism. So I wanted to flag out one areas maybe for future consideration by EPRN community. Maybe I was wondering if this is the time, again, we need to reconsider or redefine the definition of informal sector. Can we look at redefining informality? Because I'm saying this, some of the times we know that around the 93, according to statistics, 93% of establishments are said to be informal, but there could be ways to look at this in terms of different levels of formalities. Yes, there are clear definitions being registered with RRDB, being registered with tax authority, having formal accounting process and reporting taxes, and even formal employment. But again, we know that some of these people are well known with the local government. They are registered, they have patent, they are well known at the centralized level. Then this could be a topic for future consideration as we redefine informality, as well as proposing measures to push formality to support the formalization of our economy at the end of the day. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, DG Jonas, for your contribution and reaction on the presentation. We have some comments, as you can see on the screen, from our colleagues online, mostly on Zoom. I don't know if you can read all of them, maybe, or let me pick some of them. There is a question from Patrick Osakwe. He's anchored US. He wrote, "Thanks to all presenters, speakers for very good presentations. I was wondering whether the speaker from Oxfam could let us know the initiatives they have to enhance access to technology for women." That is Patrick Osakwe from Anctad. Maybe Aris will react on this. There is another question from Tesi Nyawagabo from University of Rwanda. He said, do the projected growth figures, the growth figures presented from DDA presentation or Austin, the country has some, let me read as it is. Do the projected growth figures incorporate the potential benefits that might be reaped from the African Continental Free Trade Area, or is it too early to be talking? Yeah, I think talking. He wrote touring by talking about that. I think she's asking if the country has some measured benefits from FTA or as of now, or if it is too early. Then finally, someone called Evangenzi said at the common food hub Chichuchiro, they leverage technology to digitize female street vendors. I think in Rwanda we call them abazunguzai. They want to train them in the professional food handling, basic customer services, IT skills, and availing stock to be delivered, abiding pack and pick innovation. They're asking if there is a way to support them. I think this is supported through Innovation, Ministry of Youth, and the others. Maybe what you can do on this, you can react on the question to DDA, and the question maybe to Andrew or Minicom, if there are some figures showing what the country, Rwanda, is benefiting from FTA as of now. Want to start? Maybe, yes, Andrew, want to start?
Oh, sorry, thank you. I can answer that one quite quickly. It's too early to see any tangible impact from the AFCFTA. The AFCFTA is a mid to long-term project, and the liberalisation for LDC like Rwanda is a 10-year time frame. For non-LDCs, for non-LDCs, it's 5 years. So Kenya, for example, will have to reduce its tariffs 90% of trade quicker than Rwanda will. But I think, it's only going to change things gradually over the course of this decade. That's why when I hear people suggest that the AFCFTA is a good response to the COVID crisis, well, now the COVID crisis is a little bit more urgent. This is a longer term developmental strategy, which I think, has enormous benefits for the continent, but you need to get it in that perspective. So that was the answer to that. Could I just say something else quickly as well, Seth? DG Jonas talked about the cross-border trade and the informal trade, which is, of course, extremely important to cross-border communities and livelihoods. However, in the context of the AFCFTA, you can see a scenario where little by little the incentives for that cross-border trade disappears. And that's because a lot of it is based on arbitrage, people buying on the market in the other side of the frontier and bringing it back to sell at a higher price. The AFCFTA, by eliminating the tariffs on intra-African trade, might see a reduction in some of that cross-border informal sector trade, and we will see greater importance on the formal sector trade, as Austin was mentioning. So we have to remember that in value terms, my understanding from a survey from some years back was that about 90% of Rwandan exports are carried out by 10 firms. And larger companies generally, globally, account for the bulk of global trade. So while it's good that the policy discussions, consider the livelihoods of those cross-border communities that are negatively affected by this, we shouldn't lose sight of the main objective of increasing the degree of intra-African trade and investment, and that requires focusing principally on the large players and the large exporters initially. Just wanted to make that point.
Yes, Aris, you want to react on the question addressed to you from online?
That was a very good question. I guess you're saying beyond advocating, one of the initiatives is we advocate for equal access to technology, because some of our findings really show that this COVID-19 has revealed a wider divide in technology, gender-wise. But in terms of besides advocacy, we have started with our partners. Oxfam works through local partners, and we have a project around ICT4D, information technology for development, and they've been able to carry out these rapid surveys using that. at household level, at community level, at individual level. I guess we all know at the last International Rural Women's Day, the Minister for East Africa launched, is it 5,000 women platform, a technology that women can be able to access for their trade and small businesses. What we're doing is to try and popularize that so that when it's in effect, of course it has its impediments. Not everyone has a mobile phone. And if they have a mobile phone, it's maybe analog, and but we understand from the minister that that's coming up, and they are resolving those barriers to be able to have everyone access technology, at least for their small businesses, and part of which will include using youth, because many of us have children and they understand the phone better than we do, and that they can help the women and the mothers to be able to do that. We've already been working with the Legal Aid Forum for some years back, and that project phased out and phased into continuity with the support of other embassies that focuses on response to gender-based violence using technology and basically around the women's rights, and having been able to report the issues and get counsel and get response to the issue. I should mention that we would love, we had a 10-year aspiration of a strategy, but we are closing out of Rwanda, in addition to other 17 countries, as we reduce country presence. But overall, the global strategic framework of Oxfam has a very strong component on technology, and women are at the center of everything we do, and they'll be part of that.
Thank you very much, Alice. From the panelists, if there is someone who wants to react on the questions we received from online, because we are going towards closure of this phase. Okay. No one from the audience. I don't know if IT person, there is someone from Zoom who raised the hand, maybe want to say something, because I'm seeing they are writing some of the quite similar comments in the chat room, chat box. Okay, a comment from the audience? Someone wants to say something? Okay, we will come back after lunch, receiving the other presentation. So joining me to be a big round of applause to our panelists for the very nice presentations. Thank you, Didier, for the presentation. Thank you, Aris and Austin. Thank you very much, much appreciated. Thank you, audience in the room, audience through YouTube channel of EPRN, and audience through Zoom for the question and your attention. So we are going to break for lunch, which is going to take, can we let me not be like the dictator. What can we take? 15 minutes, 2 hours, 1 hour? I don't know. 1 hour? 1 hour, I think it's enough. Huh? Let's take 1 hour from now to 2, around 2 to some minutes. When we'll be back, we'll have 4 presentations. One from Emerita Araji. He's not here with us. He's I think in US. He will be presenting through online. We will have a presentation from Vedast, Fidel Mutembelezi, and Daniel, both from EPRN members. And then we'll react on those presentations before we call it a day. So we want Ajab to tell us where is the restaurant, guide us where is the restaurant, and then we go to have the lunch.
So after going outside of this room, on your right hand there are stairs. There will be a lady called Aline who will guide us up to the restaurant. I will find her on the stairs. She will guide us. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much. Let us resume again after 1 hour. Enjoy your meal. Bon appétit, muryoherwe. Colleagues online, bon appétit, muryoherwe, wherever you are. And we let us meet again. There is a video. There are videos we got from colleagues, from partners, which will be displayed during this break. So if you're interested, or maybe if you took already your lunch, you won't be bored. We have videos which I want to play on Zoom and YouTube, which we can keep following. but I am sure you're also having lunch. Let us resume at 2 p.m. See you.
muri gahunda
ubumenyi bwinshi twagiye tubuhabwa na dutera imbere nawo gusuka bari baduhuguye muri shore n'unguke batwigishije gutyaza ubwenge bwo kubikora nubwo kovidi dusize iheruheru
badutoje umuco mwiza wo kwizigamira babicisha mu masomo baduhaga batahwemaga kuduha
kugira ngo hashobore gukorwa ubuvugizi ndetse habe n'ingamba zo guhangana n'ibyorezo haba ubu no mu bihe bizaza. Oxfam mu Rwanda yakoze inyigo igamije kureba ingaruka covid yagize mu kudindiza imishinga y'abagore bo mu cyaro n'abagabo bafatanyije birumvikana.
gukorera izo nanasi nabwo twagizemo igihombo kuko mu gihe twari muri guma mu rugo ntabwo twashoboraga kuva mu rugo ngo tujye gukora izo nanasi.
Muri gahunda y'umuryango Oxfam, gahunda y'u Rwanda harimo gufasha abagore, abagabo n'urubyiruko bugarijwe n'ubukene kubwikuramo. Muri byinshi Oxfam yagiye ikora harimo gufasha ibyo byiciro guhanga imishinga mito n'iciriritse n'ibindi bikorwa bibyara inyungu.
ubumenyi bwinshi twagiye tubuhabwa na dutera imbere nawo gusufamu bari baduhuguye muri shore n'unguke batwigishije gutyaza ubwenge bwo kubikora nubwo kovidi dusize iheruheru
badutoje umuco mwiza wo kwizigamira babicisha mu masomo baduhaga batahwemaga kuduha
kugira ngo hashobore gukorwa ubuvugizi ndetse habe n'ingamba zo guhangana n'ibyorezo haba ubu no mu bihe bizaza. Oxfam mu Rwanda yakoze inyigo igamije kureba ingaruka covid yagize mu kudindiza imishinga y'abagore bo mu cyaro n'abagabo bafatanyije birumvikana.
gukorera izo nanasi nabwo twagizemo igihombo kuko mu gihe twari muri guma mu rugo ntabwo twashoboraga kuva mu rugo ngo tujye gukora izo nanasi.
twavuga biti wenda twafata nk'abantu bahegereye bakaba bakora muri uwo murimo. Muri raporo usanga tumaze gutakaza hafi miliyoni hafi kugira enye zasohotse kugira ngo umurima ubashe kujya gusa neza.
duhomba umusaruro wacu naho twawujyanaga nabo ndumva nta kintu babashije kongera gukora.
icyambere ni igihombo twagize kigera kuri hafi miliyoni enye n'ibihumbi 97 y'imitobe yari mu rutarero itegerejwe gutarwa byabaye bitunguranye twari kugaruka zo kubitara zirangirika inanasi zangirikiye muri sitoke ziboreramo
aho guma mu rugo yarangiriye na n'ubu turasarura ariko ntabwo tugurisha nk'uko twagurishaga mbere kuko n'abaguzi abari kuvuga ati transport yariyongeye
byose byavaga hanze dukoresha byabuze ku masoko n'ibibonetse biboneka nk'utugenzi ibiciro bikatira nka gatatu
kondisiyo yatugoye kuko kugurisha abantu bahise bibanda cyane mu kuntu byo kurya amaji ntiyongeye kubona abakiriya bituma tugabanya n'abakozi twahise tugabanya 50%. abakoraga mu ruganda b'abanyabiraka barahagaze bo burundu.
Isoko ry'imbuto n'ibikomoka ku mbuto byatumaga biteza imbere mu ngo zabo.
ibyo barya
yarushijeho kwiyongera
indahindurwa uriyongera kandi bari kubishaka